TED, Social Issue, Poverty, and Child Abuse. Poverty is closely related to child abuse and neglect in the United States because many families struggle to provide their children with basic necessities. Research supports this connection between poverty and child abuse, showing that economic stresses increase the likelihood of child mistreatment. However, some studies suggest that this is not always abuse. Families living in poverty struggle to make resources last. Food, water, money are stretched across many days in order for the family to function. As a result of this, families are not able to provide their children with resources to properly live. This lack of basic necessities for children to live is a form of child neglect and a form of child maltreatment. Many sources have made this relationship between poverty and child abuse clear. One source is the Nuffield Foundation's article, New Evidence on Relationship Between Poverty and Child Abuse and Neglect. In their article, they say the international evidence about the relationship of poverty and child abuse and neglect is much stronger now than it was 5 years ago. If we consider this relationship between poverty and child abuse, the fact that it has strengthened over the past 5 years only further proves this relationship is very much real, and the problem of families living in poverty is very true. The relationship is also very logical to come to. If a family does not have any money to provide themselves, as a result, children of the family will end up being neglected as they don't have the resources to properly live. Because it isn't their fault, it's considered child abuse and neglect. Strengthening this relationship is data and evidence. As evidenced here on my screen, we have number of cases of child abuse in the United States in 2022 by age. And we can see here that for children that are older, it tends to go down, but it happens a lot for children that are younger, which is terrible. And is caused by issues that are related to poverty, mainly poverty, and other factors that I'll go over here. Strengthening the relationship is data and evidence. Various research endeavors have been made in the past 20 years to look at the relationship between poverty and child abuse. They all point towards the same thing. Poverty can lead to child abuse. One such research study is the National Conference of State Legislatures article, Poverty and Child Neglect, where they account that just a single child maltreatment factor can lead to abuse. They say the research shows the presence of one or more child maltreatment factors, such as poverty, can make a child more vulnerable to experiencing neglect. While risk factors do not cause maltreatment, buffering or reducing them is a promising prevention pathway. So what they say here with the statement here, the argument of this statement is that child abuse is more plausible when there is one more child maltreatment factor in the household. Child maltreatment factors include parents or guardians having an alcohol addiction, physical abuse, psychological abuse, and more. Factors like this are sometimes caused by poverty and also allow parents to use them as a coping mechanism. These factors can be offloaded onto their children, which is abuse. So my visual here is an empty fridge, which shows the lack of food and supplies that children may have if they are living in poverty, and this is child abuse. While research and data point towards poverty causing child mistreatment factors which lead to child abuse, this argument can be disproven when considered the state families are living in poverty. In the Imprint's article, It is Time to Stop Confusing Poverty with Child Neglect, Jerry Milner and David Kelly talk about how organizations aimed at preventing child abuse often struggle to make swift impact. We seem quite comfortable with very small, incremental improvements and minor tweaks to the way we operate. Tweaks that often benefit the operators more than living the experience. Jerry Milner and David Kelly talk about the differences that organizations who prevent child abuse and neglect take time to integrate into the families who need services. Often because these changes are delayed, the overall impact is mitigated. If services were delivered sooner, families needing help would be able to get it quicker, therefore lessening the risk of child abuse. In the Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls, she recalls a time when she had to eat cat food and popcorn. Jack mackerel was not as good as tuna, but better than cat food, which we ate from time to time when things got really tight. Sometimes Mom popped a big batch of popcorn for dinner. It always had lots of fiber, she pointed out. Jeanette recalls how she ate cat food from time to time when things got really tight. They ate cat food because when the Walsh family's money was low, that is all they had. Additionally, Jeanette's mother, Rose, would prepare popcorn for the family dinner instead of real food dinner, because that's all they had. Due to the Walsh family being poor, they are forced to resort to extreme orders to live, which is not abuse because it was not intended to be abuse. The Walls' situation is not child abuse because they were essentially forced into it. Rose and Rex, Jeanette's father, does not intend for times to get so dire that they had to eat cat food meant for other beings. So, to wrap up, households living in poverty often struggle to provide basic necessities for their children. While research consistently points at the correlation between poverty and child abuse, it is important to recognize that poverty does not necessarily always correlate to child abuse. Poverty is particularly common in the USA, especially among minority communities. And in households affected by poverty, the risk for child abuse and neglect is high due to many factors. Families need to consider their financial state before having children. If they already have children, recognize that when times get too difficult, that they should take appropriate action to help their children out. Understanding the link between child abuse and poverty is the first step to mitigating it. If we truly care for a child's well-being, we need to advocate for more intervention programs, better support systems, and stronger policies against abuse. Let's not mistake poverty for child neglect. Let's work towards both ends.